The guy actually who loves hockey and loves all sports, the most diehard person of all time. One of my favorite people, on the rise in his career like no other, over to Sports Illustrated after I worked with him at Fansided for, I don't know, felt like a decade, wasn't quite that long. But joining us, the father of Maisie, Ben, and Genevieve, the newest man at Sports Illustrated, straight out of upstate New York, but now living in Rockford, Illinois, with the best background in all of sports media, Matt Verderame. What's up, my friend, NFL expert?
That was quite an introduction.
Thank you.
I'm good. How are you, Carm?
We're great. Taves' last game as a Blackhawk tonight, so we're having some sports feelings. I went back to January 10th, 1988, Walter Payton's last game as a Bear. They lose at home to Washington. He's sitting on the. I know you remember it. You're ultimately, when Verderame's done being a draft expert and covering the NFL and writing amazing stuff for SI, he's going to be at the NFL historian. All he does is watch stuff every single day. You're a Chiefs fan, Matt Verderame. For people that don't know you, do you have a sports feeling moment of a last game of a Chief or anybody else around the NFL?
The NFL,
or anywhere. You can pick any sport for as far as I'm
concerned. Probably in hockey, I always think of Martin Brodeur. I was at his last game with the Devils. I went to the game. That was the only game I've ever been to where I didn't do anything but pretty much watch one player, because that was all that mattered that entire game. So that would probably be the one. I mean, I would say Patrick Ewing, but he got unceremoniously traded, so that was a different deal. But yeah, probably Brodeur in New Jersey.
I love the
fact
that
Nick know who Martin Brodeur is?
Nick, do you know who Martin Brodeur is? That's a no. Okay.
Yeah, it's right over his shoulder, too. You see the
He's
jersey
a New Jersey
him,
Devil. He's a goalie.
The GOAT. Possibly.
Greatest goaltender of all time.
There it is.
Now I know.
All right.
Patty Waugh.
But that is not why you're here, Verderame. So let's talk driving. Let's talk some NFL. Actually, I want to start with what do you think is happening with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and the Packers apparently just in no rush to make things easy for Rodgers and whatever. If you're going to give us that first-round pick, 13 overall, we'll do it. But if you're not, then maybe we'll just keep the guy.
I mean, right now I think that they're a stalemate, but I think the reality of it is the Packers aren't going to pay him $58.3 million, which is what's due to him by September. It's not happening. They're not paying him that amount of money. So the Jets ultimately know here he's got to get moved. And the only thing that would change this whole picture is if another team gets involved. Do the 49ers just say, you know what? Fine. We're going for it. I mean, that would change the picture. Then the Packers have the leverage we keep talking about in this. But otherwise, what are the Packers going to do? I mean, at some point, they got to move him. Now, I've talked to people in the league who say, look, they're not all that worried about getting picks for this draft. They want picks for next year's draft because Drake May and Caleb Williams are in that draft. And if Love doesn't pan out, then they've got all this ammunition to go up and get him. Now, the flip side of that is the Jets have 2 second-round picks right now, back-to-back. I do not think the Packers are getting the Jets' first-round pick. I have not talked to one person in the league who thinks the Jets are giving up that pick. So if you're the Packers, would you take a 2 and then a conditional next year based upon how many games you win or how far you go in the playoffs? I think in the end of this, look, the only thing that could hold it up is if the Jets are saying, hey, we want you to pay X of that $58 million and the Packers balk. But I think eventually it's going to get done one way or the other. It has to.
Matt, I've been seeing a lot lately, especially since we're getting closer to the draft, where Houston may not take a quarterback at 2 and maybe takes the best player available that's not a quarterback. Where are you with that? Where, Houston obviously will be in the driver's seat after number 1 overall pick goes to Carolina, but is that becoming more of a possibility or just kind of something that's happening because the draft's coming up in a couple weeks?
Well, my colleague over at SI, Albert Breer, has put out there a few times, look, it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee they're going to take a quarterback. Now, obviously, I certainly will stand with Albert on that one, but I will say this. I think it would be insane if they don't take a quarterback. It'd be insane. You're gonna continue to build this team and have Davis Mills under center. That's the answer for this team going forward. And you're going to tell me DeMeco Ryans, he wants to go in there and deal with this. And for anybody who's like, well, it's his first year. Yeah, they just fired a couple guys on their first year. So if I'm DeMeco Ryans, I'm saying, look, I'll fix the defense. I'll deal with mid-round guys. We'll get a guy here, a guy there, free agency as time goes on. Maybe use a high pick on a defender with their second first-round pick. But if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I can fix the defense. That's my forte. I need a quarterback, and I think if you get one, look, the Texans aren't going to make a bunch of noise next year. I don't think no matter how this draft plays out. But in that division, you could win some more games. You could be at least a team that maybe wins 6 games, maybe even pushes. You're a little frisky. I put my mock out today. It's the only one I'll do. I had Stroud 1, and I had Bryce Young 2. Now, certainly you could flip those. But I would be very surprised if those aren't the top 2 picks in this draft.
So I read through your mock, and before we get to it was a great rate, loved it. I don't think you're right about the Bears, but we'll get to that in a second. I do think that it's not what I think. There is thoughts out there that if the Texans want Bryce Young, but they don't want C.J. Stroud. Do you believe that noise, or do you think that, I mean, I get your take that they absolutely, if Young goes to the Panthers, then you take Stroud and be done with it, or you want to roll the dice big and go Anthony Richardson. You need a QB, but do you buy that noise?
I mean, look, I think if you're Houston and you really feel that way, and Young goes off the board to Carolina, which a lot of people think he will, I put Stroud 1 simply because I think Stroud is the safer bet, although I think Young might have the bigger upside. But, look, there's a real chance. In fact, there's probably even a better than 50-50 chance. I'm in the minority that Bryce Young goes number 1. If he does, and they don't love C.J. Stroud, and they don't love Richardson enough to take him at 2, which is fine. I get that. Richardson hasn't thrown 1,000 passes between college and high school. I understand that. Then in theory, you take Will Anderson at 2. But if I'm the Texans, if you're not taking a quarterback, trade out of the pick. Straight out of it. Move back. Because you're not a Will Anderson away from winning anything that matters. So go back and get more capital. Now, I don't have a problem with them doing that if they really don't like those quarterbacks. But if they like one of these guys and they don't take a quarterback, I think they're nuts. In the end, public pressure matters too. They're going to get vilified in Houston if they don't take a quarterback with this pick. I mean, just absolutely crushed in the 4th biggest media market in the United States. So I still think they're walking away with a quarterback. But, look, weirder things have happened. Years ago, everybody thought they were going to take Reggie Bush, and they took Mario Williams. So they went against the grain there. I mean, it does happen. I just think it's unlikely.
Man, let's get to your mock draft, and you have the Bears taking Skoronski at 9, and then I noticed 2 picks later, Paris Johnson going to the Titans. For you, is Skoronski just a safer pick? Like, if he's not going to amount to being, or one, also being maybe the best offensive lineman technician-wise, is he just somebody that if he doesn't go out and translate to tackle, you can move him inside, you have a good player that's going to be playing in the NFL for a long time? Is that why kind of over like a Paris Johnson who maybe fits more of the physical attributes that the Bears are kind of looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think my main thought on it was Skoronski has so much versatility up front. I think you're always going to be able to find somewhere he can play. Always. Now, some of these guys that are tackles, like if they don't work out a tackle, you're just kind of screwed. I mean, they don't have the ability to kick inside and play guard, at least not naturally, where I think Skoronski can play anywhere. That said, this is a draft that is really, really deep in tackles. And so I talked to one scout a couple weeks ago who actually thought that was the best position in the draft, was all these offensive linemen. So if you want to sit there and say, hey, Paris Johnson, some people love Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. There are some people who think he's a late round pick. There are some people who think he's going to go in the top 12 picks. So, there's a lot of different guys you could throw in there. I just like Skoronski for the Bears, not because of the Northwestern ties, as I'm sure some people would see, but because I like the versatility. I think that just insulates you from him being a bust. I think if nothing else, you're going to get a good player who can start for a long time.
I do like that reframe there because he's a guard. Well, no, like worst case scenario, he's a good guard. The floor for everybody else over there is that they can't play.
They can't play.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that I like the way you're thinking about it. What you just mentioned with the Bears options and Wright moving up on some boards and not. I think what the Bears are looking to do here is trade down, Matt. I think they look at that dude as going to be there at 16, 17, 18, and I'll go to 19 where you have Will Levis going to the Bucs. I think if you get if 3 quarterbacks go off the board, 1, 2, 3, which is what I think is going to happen, which a lot of people think is going to happen.
Yeah,
I could see Tampa. Hey, we got to come up and get them. You go down to 9. The Bears get a first-round pick. They get their right tackle at 19. That to me, that's a home run.
No, well, it would be. See, like when I do mocks, I don't do trades. Although I will tease this next week just for fun. I did a mock draft where I traded every single first-round pick, and let me tell you, that was a mental exercise. We had some fun with it. But I think Carman, you're right. Like, there's a very real chance the Cardinals trade that pick, and you're looking 1, 2, 3, right? I mean, in whatever order you want to put them in, Young, Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. I do think there's a chance Levis falls in this draft a little bit more than people think he will. But as we all know with quarterbacks, it takes one team. It takes one team that just says, you know what, he's our guy. Okay, fine. If you're the Bears and you can move back, that's awesome because the depth in this class is really good. And I think, frankly, again, talking to people around the NFL, a lot of people feel like the sweet spot of this draft is between picks like 15 and 75 because there's not a ton of difference between a lot of these guys. There's not, there's a lot of depth in this draft. You're going to get some really good players even in the second round, early third round. And if you're the Bears, sure, move back. The problem is how many teams in a draft like that want to move up? And can you find that partner? Now, a lot of that ties into how does the board look? If a guy's falling, like here, perfect example. Let's say Jalen Carter falls, okay? And you're on the clock as the Chicago Bears at 9, and Jalen Carter is staring you in the face. But let's say the Bears just, whatever, they don't want to take him. That's the kind of situation where you could trade back. But if the draft goes and Carter goes and the quarterbacks go and Will Anderson's off the board, you're going to have a lot of teams that say, you know what, we're good with waiting because we're going to fall right into some value. So I think a lot of it is just how does the board fall and do you get a surprise or two in the top 7, 8 picks?
Matt, let me ask you this. We're going to talk about the NFC North in a little bit here, Mark and I. Out of the teams there, between the Lions, who have 6 and 18, the Packers at 15, and then the Vikings at 23, who do you think, in your opinion, is most likely to select a quarterback out of those 3 teams?
That's a really good question. The Packers, I don't think will. I just can't imagine a scenario the Packers would do it. Minnesota's really interesting because I know that they have had preliminary discussions on an extension with Cousins. But nothing's happened, and he's got 1 year left on his deal. And he's well into his mid-30s at this point. Or at least I should say he's entering his mid-30s. If Herndon Hooker's there, does Minnesota say, you know what? Fine. Maybe. Now, here's the downside with Hooker. He's coming off the torn ACL, and he's 25 years old. Right. That's a real thing. Like, his rookie deal is going to end. He's going to be 30, okay? Yep. But he's got a lot of talent. And if he ends up being really good, you're still going to get a dozen years out of him. Like, you're that upset about it? So that's a risk you might be willing to take if you're Minnesota. I think Hooker's going to be late first, early second. That all said, the Lions are really interesting because Goff had a very good season, but is he your long-term answer? And it's 6 and 12. Like that, I think they're the best team in the division right now. I really do. I think the Lions, for the first time in a long time, are actually a team that could win a playoff game. Would they, if Anthony Richardson gets to 6, I feel like you're almost compelled to take him, right? Like you sit him because that's perfect for him. Sit for a year, really good coaching staff, right? I mean, that would be ideal, but I don't know that he gets there. I'll say Minnesota just because I think the board might fall in a way where and maybe if Levis falls enough, maybe they even move up. I'll say the Vikings, but I think the Lions, if the board falls the right way, would be a really, really interesting play there for Richardson.
So, man, I know you said, like, Green Bay is completely out of it. Is it just because they need to see what Jordan Love is or confident in what he can be and just out of the equation to even go that route to select another QB?
They have to find out who he is. I mean, you spent a first-round pick, and you've been dancing around this now for years. You got to find – and honestly, here's the quiet part of this. If you're the Packers. If he sucks and you're really bad next year, you can go get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Yep. So, like, who would you rather have? Will Levis this year? And here's the other part of this. What if Jordan Love's really good? Now what? Now you wasted that pick. So, like, if I'm them, I'd be like, look, guys, you got to get fact they do not have an owner. Mark Murphy's been there forever. That is a very patient, conservative organization. Nobody's losing their job this year if they go 4-13. Nobody. And they all know it. So if that team stinks, so what? Big deal, right? Especially if you get the Jets to give you that 2024 capital. You have all this ammunition. I don't think if you're look, could you guys name one free agent the Packers have signed this offseason?
I can't.
There's a reason. They haven't signed one.
No. Yeah.
Okay? Believe me. I'm not saying they're tanking, but I'm just saying, like, if Love isn't good, I think we can call that a happy accident for the Packers because now they've got this ability to go up and get a generational talent in Mayor Williams.
Which would be the Bears karma, by the way. Favre, Rodgers. Oh, yeah, they sucked for 1 year with Jordan Love. Now they got Caleb Williams, so they're going to be great again for 20 years. My trade scenario up to 3, Verderame, and we appreciate the time. We'll get you out here in a couple minutes. But you've got the Raiders taking Christian Gonzalez at 7. They've met with all 5 quarterbacks. I have the Titans trading up from 11 to 3 because the gambling market went nuts about 2 weeks ago with rumors around the Titans moving up to 3 to grab Richardson. So that's what I still think is going to happen, even though that noise has kind of calmed down. You don't think a quarterback's going to the Raiders because they've got Jimmy Garoppolo for 3 years and $34 million guaranteed?
So I put it this way again with this mock draft. Like I did my one where I'm just being funny with it next week, and we just went crazy with trades. But I try not to do trades and mocks because I just feel like it's insane. Like you have no idea what's going to happen. That being said, if you said to me, do you think the Raiders would trade up? I mean, the Raiders is pretty well documented. Tried to trade up the number 1 overall pick. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Now, if you look at Garoppolo's deal, he's there for 2 years. I mean, unless they're just willing to eat an ungodly amount of dead cap or go post June 1 and spread the cap head out over the following 2 years into 25 and 24 and 25. I think it's more likely that they take a defensive player. I mean, other than Max Crosby, they are rancid defensively. That team's not stopping anybody. You've got, and in that division, if you can't stop anybody, you got a problem. Like you're going 0-4 against the Chiefs and the Chargers. So I think they will go defensive. Now, if Richardson falls, that changes the whole game. Okay, I personally don't believe that he's getting past the Colts. I don't. If you're the Colts, with the quarterback situation they've had since Andrew Luck, you're passing on that kid? I just can't do that. You're taking Lucas Van Ness? Like, what? There's no way. Nothing against Lucas Van Ness. He's a very good player. Your Iowa Hawkeyes are calling. But I think if you're the Colts, you have to take Richardson. Now, are the Raiders willing to trade up to 3? Maybe. The Titans, I think, are fascinating because you're right about the betting markets. And also, Rand Carthon's a first-year GM. And so my point, I should expound that. My point is with that, like, you want to find your guy. Tannehill has a year left on his deal. And by the way, the Texans might be getting their quarterback. And the Colts, who are also in your division, might get theirs. You want to jump in front of them and make a play in your division? Sure. I think the Titans make more sense than the Raiders. Because the Titans, to me, only have 1 year at Tannehill, and they have a whole new regime. The Raiders seem to be intent on being the Patriots again, which good luck with that. It never happens. So I think the Titans are more interesting in trading up than the Raiders are.
Matt, real quickly, who's the most polarizing prospect in this year's draft, in your opinion? You just watch this guy, you're like, oh, he could be this, and then, maybe.
Richardson.
Okay.
I think there's just this weird conversation about, like, people almost talk about this guy like he can't miss. Look, I love his talent. I think if he hits his ceiling, he could be an unbelievable, like, best quarterback in the class, easily type of quarterback. But he's thrown, like, 800 and some odd passes between high school and college. You know, and, like, we've all seen for years, and I'm not saying it's going to happen with him, guys get drafted based on potential and their traits and what they could be. And all these coaches were like, I could turn this guy into something. You don't know that. You don't know that you can turn him into something. It's like the guy in baseball who's got a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but he can't locate it. And everybody's like, but he throws 98. It's like, yeah, it's great. He just walked 5 guys. Richardson, if he hits the ceiling, he's going to be unbelievable. I think as character goes, great. The question's going to be, does that raw talent turn into something great, or does it stay just talent?
2 more. Do you buy Nolan Smith?
Yeah, I do. Georgia's been churning out kids left and right. I do buy him. I think he's a top 10 pick. I think he could go to Philly. They love Georgia defenders. They took Davis and Dean last year, but I think in worst case he's mid-first round.
See, The reason why I ask is you have them going to Philly 10, and you've got Skoronski to the Bears 9, or alignment at 9, and we're not okay. So you're not making trades, which is fine. Let's do it that way. Between those two, if I'm the Bears, I'm taking Nolan Smith, man. That ceiling is way higher. It's a scarier play because of his size and all that. But I mean, we're talking about a potential elite talent who's now being compared to Micah Parsons. All right. More importantly, he is Lawrence. The guy's getting Micah Parsons love. I don't think he is, but throw that name out there, I get excited. All right, Bears Chiefs. Are we going to Germany, Verderame? You got any inside info here?
I would love to go to Germany for the game. I do not think I'm going. I have 2 young kids at the house. I think I'd come home and there'd be papers at the door. But I would love to do that. I think that would be an experience, just going out there and grabbing a brat and a beer and watching the game. I'd like to do it as a fan, though, and not as a journalist. That would be my goal.
But is it confirmed? Did I miss something? It's not confirmed yet, right? But you think
it's not? But it's been heavily rumored.
Okay, so you think it's happening? Chiefs. It's a good. It's we don't. That means the Bears don't have to deal with your Arrowhead crowd, which I think is slightly overrated, but still very.
Listen, I think all home field advantage stuff is slightly overrated.
Fair enough. I mean,
does it matter?
Arrowhead. Okay, relax.
It matters in terms of weather. Like when it's really cold. Like if the Chiefs play the Dolphins in a playoff game, I think it matters if it's 8 degrees outside. Then I think it matters. But like the noise and all that, yeah, sure, it matters a little bit, sure. But I don't think it's like people make it out like can't win in that building. Like listen, you can win road games. Like, these guys are professional athletes. It's okay.
Verderame, people should be reading you. Subscribe at SI long after you become a diehard here at CHGO. Great stuff. And last one on the way out. The Bears aren't doing this. But let's say they just trade down, and instead of your guy Bijan Robinson going to the Chargers and we're placing Austin Eckler at 21, and the Bears somehow, whatever they were going to take Darnell Wright, but Wright's gone all of a sudden, and now they're sitting there at 19, and Bijan's the best player on the board. Do you take him? Bijan, let's go.
If the Bears take a running back, everybody should be fired.
Take that.
The Bears are like 30 needs. If they take a running back, everyone involved should be fired for that card start thing.
Yeah, okay. They're not doing it. I just think, potential best player of the draft. Guys like that excite me. That's all, Bijan could be, in the Hall of Fame someday. We'll see. All right. Hey, thanks for making time, sir. Good luck to your Knicks in the playoffs.
Oh, God. They're going to lose. All right. Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated, joining us. Huge New York Knick, New Jersey Devil, Kansas City Chief. Verderame's the man. Good friend of mine, and also just knows his football like no other, Nicholas Moreano.